Now, the mayor did not mention Senate Bill 298 today. That's the legislation by Montgomery Representative Will Barfoot that would allow a state takeover if MPD doesn't hire more officers. Supporters there arguing that these maps are about politics, not race. What's your response to that?
Listen, if it wasn't about race, let me tell you something about my Republican.
We looked into Tuberville's claims. Multiple states and various nonprofit groups report non-citizen voting in the U.S. is extremely rare, and it's also illegal.
If those concerns were already being raised, why did this property continue to operate?
And the Supreme Court did not say what Alabama's congressional map should look like. Instead, a 3-judge federal panel will now revisit the case. The bill has not come up for debate, but it still could pass before the legislative session comes to an end. Ashley's fear echoes through Alabama, so I brought her story to the people making the decisions. Senate Bill 298 only impacts Montgomery and Huntsville. It would require both cities to have 1.9 officers on staff for 1,000 residents. Right here, where laws are written and decisions are made, one woman dropped down to her knees, not in protest, but in prayer. The mayor did point out, though, that MPD has brought about 30 new officers on board in the past week. What is your message to her and to families like hers who say they're tired of the violence and they just want to see change?
That I join her in being tired as well.
The bill now heads to the House, where lawmakers will decide whether to move it forward. This bill was introduced by Senator Will Barfoot, also of Montgomery. Now, we did reach out to Barfoot to get a response, but we're still waiting to hear back. City leaders say this vote only gives their lobbyists direction, and any real policy change would have to happen at a later date and at the state level. What's holding up that funding in Congress right now?
5 Democrat senators. That's what's holding it up.
The council is proposing a new updated ordinance that will give officers more authority. How urgent would you say is this issue for the council right now?
It's past urgent.
And on Saturday, marchers are expected to come from all across the country to take that historic walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and eventually making their stop at the Alabama State Capitol. Senators are debating the bill this week, but it's still unclear whether it has enough support to pass. Mackey says districts are already recruiting drivers and even helping pay for CDL training, but the shortage continues. And Mark, now that the bill has passed both chambers, it goes on to the governor. Education leaders say they're confident she'll sign it. Now, both bills are still moving through the legislature and have not yet received final approval. If approved and signed by Governor Kay Ivey, the law would take effect July 1st, but the statewide inspection system wouldn't fully begin until 2027.
The current council will keep handling the city's finances, including another vote on that financial advisor ordinance.
And panelists tonight urge people to check their voter status, stay informed, and show up to the polls. And the man that attempted to assassinate President Trump is back in court. And today's hearing will determine if he will remain in custody. Alabama Secretary of State and Attorney General filed emergency motions asking the Supreme Court to look at the Alabama case.
We now have the ability to do what we've long argued we should be able to do, and that is draw maps consistent with traditional redistricting principles and not allow race to be a predominant factor or a factor in how those are drawn.
But Democrats disagree, citing years of discrimination that prevented Black Alabamians from electing candidates of their choice. Congresswoman Terry Sewell says Black voters make up nearly 1/3 of the electorate, and we deserve no less than 2 seats. State Representative Wandalyn Gavan,
It is a modern day lynching.
was even more direct. Supporters there arguing that these maps are about politics, not race. What's your response to that?
Listen, if it wasn't about race, let me tell you something about my raggedy Republican colleagues who continue to want to live in a society in which they don't want to be labeled as racist. But that is what they are. This whole process is about race. If it were not about race, why change the maps?
Going back to Alabama's original congressional map would remove the newly redrawn 2nd District, which is currently represented by Congressman Shamari Figgers.
It not only continues their trend of breaking from the norms and precedent set by the court, but also sets the stage for Alabama to literally go back to the 1950s and 60s in terms of Black political representation in the state.
We reached out to Republican Senate President Pro Tem Garland Gudger for an interview, but was given this statement praising the decision, saying, quote, "The Supreme Court has cleared the path for Alabama to hold free, open, and fair elections using the constitutional maps drawn by the legislature." The conversations surrounding voting rights, race, and the future of the country have once again brought people back to Selma and the Alabama State Capitol. But inside this home in Troy, Alabama, those conversations never left.
books and stuff there.
This is the home where John Lewis grew up, where a young boy from rural Alabama would one day become a civil rights icon.
It's real hurtful to see everything that he sacrificed and everything he went through. He gave his life for voting rights.
The family told me watching thousands gather in Selma and Montgomery once again this weekend brought up a lot of emotion. Because for them, this isn't just history, it's personal.
Because you're talking about a man that went to jail over 44 times.
More than 60 years ago, John Lewis helped lead peaceful marchers across the Edmund Pettus Bridge during Bloody Sunday, where Alabama state troopers attacked demonstrators demanding the right to vote, leaving Lewis with a fractured skull. But his family says even through the violence, Lewis and other marchers believe discipline and peaceful protests were their greatest weapons.
We all know all the training they went through to participate and be nonviolent. It took training.
Like my uncle said, hey, your vote is the most powerful nonviolent tool that you carry.
The family says this was never about black versus white, but about unity.
I think it's easy and it's weak and it's lazy to say it's just about racism. And I really think that's what's causing a division.
I'm like, so this is what this good trouble means right here. This is really the meaning of good trouble, you know, speaking up when everyone else is quiet.
And after spending the day reflecting on John Lewis's life, his legacy, and the sacrifices made during the civil rights movement, his family says now their hope is that people continue to walk in the same peace John Lewis once did himself. Nairemi, Troy.